It's Ash from Super Videos back for another video for Season 9 of The Walking Dead. This is going to be my episode review for the last episode of The Walking Dead that aired this Sunday, Season 9 episode 12 called Guardians. Now before getting into this, I do want to cover this real quick as well. There were a lot of people wondering whether we were going to have any merchandise for the channel, and I've officially opened up a store for the channel on Teespring where you can buy a lot of merchandise there. Now we have a variety of different merchandise. You can buy channel specific merchandise like this t-shirt here that's just for the channel, just to show your support and to join our family. But also there's tons of other options for you as well. If you are interested in just zombie related shirts, we have a little bit of that. If you want some Walking Dead shirts, we have a lot of that here. And also make sure to use the promo code SUPERV19 during checkout to get a 35% discount on any purchase this week on the store. This special offer ends Saturday, March 9th, 2019. So make sure you make use of that and you jump on that right away. So with that said, let's jump right into this. Overall, I would say this was yet another strong episode for this season. It wasn't anything mind-blowing except a couple of moments here and there. But overall, as an episode in its entirety, I would say it was definitely a solid episode. I did enjoy it a lot. It wasn't anything too special, but it did have its great moments. I wouldn't say that it was a terrible episode. I wouldn't say it was a great episode. It was somewhere in between, leaning more towards the good side. But I'm just going to go through a couple of plot points here that I have written down that I do want to talk about. Starting with Alpha and the other Whisperers bringing Lydia back to their camp. Now, that part I actually really enjoyed because not only did we see more of Alpha and her interaction with Lydia, which I thought was very cool and interesting. It was definitely very, very cool to see, what type of dialogue they have, what interactions they have, and how Alpha tries to get information out of Lydia. So I absolutely enjoyed that part, and I thought that not only does it help flesh out the character Alpha a lot more, but also the philosophy that the Whisperers have. And also it helps us see, where does Lydia stand? How does she cope with this much pressure put on by Alpha trying to get information out of her? So I absolutely enjoyed that. Now let's go into the Henry part. Henry shows up, he's hiding in a ditch, a Whisperer shows up, he beats one of the Whisperers, and then Beta shows up and basically beats his ass and captures him. Now one of the problems I had with this episode was this moment. And maybe it wasn't really the moment itself, but it was what was revealed before the episode. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that. So this was actually Beta's first introduction, first scene, if you will. And it was ruined in a way. It was underwhelming the way it played out. And maybe, going back to what I said before, maybe this wouldn't have been underwhelming if they didn't reveal that or release that as a sneak peek. Because they did that before the episode. So that definitely took away from a lot of the experience. And it definitely made me not enjoy it as much as I would have if I didn't see Beta in the sneak peek. And that just goes back to the fact that they are revealing a lot of information for upcoming episodes for no reason whatsoever. But other than that, even if we didn't see that as a sneak peek, I would still think that it was just a little underwhelming. It needed a little bit more to make it pop, you know what I mean? And I felt like they should have dragged that just a tiny bit more and intensified the scene a little bit more before they resolved it. And I felt like they resolved it pretty quickly. But I definitely did enjoy seeing Henry get manhandled by Beta. That was cool to see. And then when Henry starts talking, Lydia punches Henry in the face. I thought that was done perfectly. And it kind of gave us a hint that Lydia is doing this not because of herself, but because of Henry, because she felt like Henry was saying too much. So to save Henry, she punched him. So I absolutely enjoyed the subtlety in that and how great that scene played out. Then we get to the Whisperers camp. I thought that was very well done. Seeing the Whisperers camp in the comics, it felt a little bit different than what we saw in the show. In the show, we definitely saw a little bit more and they fleshed it out a little bit more in terms of the lifestyle of the Whisperers and how they live. And I feel like they highlighted a lot more in the TV show than they did in the comics. And obviously there's a lot more coming as well, I'm sure. But I did really enjoy them going to the camp and getting the reveals that we got in terms of, you know, the lifestyle that they have, how they live, how they're like animals, and how there's whispers going on amongst the whispers, which definitely came back into play later on in this episode. Which gets me to my next point. I absolutely loved how we had a few whispers challenging Alpha. I definitely thought that it was important for us to see that, just to understand, how does Alpha really lead, you know? What is her tactic? How does she keep them in line? We've seen how Negan kept the Saviors in line, but we never saw in the comics necessarily to this extent how Alpha kept people in line. So I loved seeing that. Now, was it rushed a little bit? Absolutely. But I absolutely enjoyed what they gave us. And I felt like the way they did it, how intense it was, how dark it was, definitely added to that. Think about it. Alpha beheaded the girl, gave the head to the boyfriend, and then killed the boyfriend. How messed up is that? So I absolutely enjoyed that. It was dark, maybe the darkest thing we've seen in The Walking Dead for quite a long time, but it was definitely a great moment. And like I said, they could have added a little bit more to make it shine a little bit more, but I did enjoy what they gave us. And I think that was the highlight of this episode. I feel like this, along with the cliffhanger, were the highlights of this episode, which I absolutely enjoyed. Then we get to the part where Alpha forces Lydia to kill Henry. I thought that was very well done, great performance, and having Daryl and Connie dressed as Whisperers showing up to save the day and bringing the walkers with them was the icing on the cake. And I absolutely enjoyed that. And even though I saw it coming and I speculated that this would happen, go back to my prediction, you will see that, but it still was great, and I absolutely enjoyed it, even though I knew it was coming. So I absolutely enjoyed all of that, just to see the Whisperers, how twisted they are, how they live, and how Alpha leads. I absolutely enjoyed all of that. So now let's jump into a little bit of Alexandria. So first, Michonne and the Council, that conversation, I loved what I saw. It was great, and it just lets us see, you know, the council and how they come up with decisions. Two little problems, and one of these problems is not really a writing thing, is more of a why is this character doing this type of thing. But one of these problems was Michonne and the way she acted. She was really selfish in this scene, and although I do understand she's doing it for the benefit of the community, it still felt like she was being a little selfish. I couldn't really connect with the character at that point. So, you know, that was a little problem I had. Not because of the writing, but because of how the character acted. And I thought that they could have made it a little bit different so that she doesn't come across as that selfish to begin. The other part that I was confused about is, who is that random girl in the council? Who is that? But that's another small problem. Next, going into the Michonne and Negan conversation, I really enjoyed that. I thought this was done very well, and I like how Michonne countered Negan's speech and his dialogue. I thought that was all great and perfectly executed. The last thing I do want to talk about is the Eugene, Rosita, Siddiq, Father Gabriel thing. I thought that was too much. It felt like filler. I mean, aside from the fact that some of the stuff Eugene was saying during his conversation with Father Gabriel felt out of place, and it wasn't like something Eugene would really talk about or mention or say. But aside from that, that's one part of it. Aside from that, I just thought the whole thing was dragged out a little bit too much. First, they completely skipped over Father Gabriel learning about the baby and Siddiq. That was the first thing. They should have shown that a little bit more. They skipped over that, and they gave us extra stuff that we didn't really need to know or need to see. And I thought this was the only filler of this episode, which I would have been fine with them just taking it out completely. Maybe have a scene with just the four of them going to a house, and, you know, then the rest is for us to guess what they talk about. We know what they're going to talk about, but the rest is just for us to have our own imagination and think about it. And then maybe afterwards we could have a quick conversation between Eugene and Gabriel, and maybe Eugene and Rosita, and or maybe the 3 or 4 of them together, just to see the aftermath of what they decided to do. But other than that, I just thought that was a little too much. But that's basically all of my notes here. That's everything I wanted to cover for you guys. I did enjoy the episode. It was not the greatest episode, it wasn't the worst episode. It had its shining moments, it had its down moments. But I did enjoy the episode for what it was as a whole. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video. If you like what you see, press like, subscribe for more content, and press the bell button to receive notifications for daily uploads.